pushes way up the racetrack, and now here comes Janzik. Janzik goes by Query, and he goes by Inman. Burnell gets a great run, another 3 wide for the race lead. It's going to drag race off of turn 4. Shepard is there, but it's Larry White at the line. Still going to be Pat Ward, and they make contact. Britton has broken the race car. AJ Slideways. Alan Johnson wins.
Whether you hug the infield tires or rip the cushion, you found the fastest dirt track podcast in motorsports. Welcome to Where Legends Are Made, the official podcast of Land of Legends Raceway. Here's Stephen and Brad Ovens.
Well, folks, welcome in to Season 6, not Season 5. If you were tuned into our episode with Matt Williamson last week, you heard me reference this as Season 5, and apparently I can't count. Don't hold it against me. I went to Penn Yan Academy. So, Season 6, Episode 2. Happy to bring you another interview here in the off season where we're going to catch up with a driver that has really turned a lot of heads over the last couple of seasons. And as Dillon would probably tell you, sometimes it's for the good reasons, sometimes it's not been for the good reasons. But we'll get into all of that. Dillon Paddock. We call him the Showstopper at the racetrack, joining us here on Where Legends Are Made. Dillon, welcome into the program. Appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, this is really cool. This is new to me, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, let's start with the nickname. How do we feel about the Showstopper?
I don't really have too many opinions on it. People kind of take it all, different ways. They say because, I bring out a caution sometimes or maybe even a red flag. But, we try to always put on a show and, put the fans on their feet and hopefully make the announcer get excited as well. So,
well, I could tell you from my vantage point at Land of Legends, you definitely have done that and has had a lot of good runs. The one thing that I would say is something that you said at the banquet, getting, highlight of the year. I know this year didn't end in a championship season, but you said in getting that highlight of the year that, hey, if we can't win the show, you might as well be the show. And the way that I look at that is not from the perspective of, some of the, maybe things that fans might see as exciting that are not so great for drivers and the race teams. But I think it's your driving style and your, willingness to put yourself in position that, a lot of times really does pay off because you seem to, be willing to put yourself in that spot to make that move or, take the race lead in an exciting way. And that's how I look at it when I think of the nickname and when I think of those things is, you are and this is my opinion, of course, but my opinion is you're one of those guys that whether you're starting up front, you're starting in the middle of the field, or if, you have a bad night in the heat race and you got to start out back in the feature, you're one of those guys that I think fans, no matter how long the race is, they've got to keep their eye on where the 8 car is at all times and see where he's coming. So I'm curious, kind of, in terms of driving style, like where does that come from, and how do you approach driving the race car that it has really become pretty entertaining for fans to watch?
Yeah, that's that's kind of the motto around here. If you can't win the show, try to be the show. So we kind of have been living and dying by that for the last 2 seasons. I grew up, my family was racing Blake and Bobby Breen, so I grew up watching them guys, and I felt like watching them, they were kind of the same way. And I kind of learned from them, being around them, growing up, and then finally went out on the road and learned a lot out there, get to see a lot. You go to some of these big races and big events, and you see all the top drivers. For example, like Sheldon Haudenschild, he's always on the edge. You don't know what he's going to do one corner, and the next is he's got everyone on their feet, and keeping it exciting. So it's just from watching, people around, and I've always felt like, just attack the track as hard as you can, and push the limits every time you're out there. And I'd say every time I go out on the track, to me that's sprint car racing. You got to drive the car 110% every time you're out there, and I'm just one of those guys. You don't leave anything left behind, and just do the best you can every time you're out there.
Let's kind of, turn the dials back and kind of talk about that start in racing. You mentioned the Breen brothers, which is a huge throwback for me. My brother and my family grew up racing with the Breens. Um, Still friends with Mr. Breen on Facebook today. Love that man.
Yep.
Love getting the opportunity to interact with him. We spent a lot of time together at the go-kart tracks growing up. And but so for you, racing was kind of starting not so much as a driver, but kind of as a crew or even a spectator.
Yeah, being young, back when my uncles were racing, a little too young to really be so much involved. But just standing around watching, and my grandfather, thankfully, he brought me to all the races. He was signing me out of school to pretty much bring me every Friday, Saturday we were racing. So learned a lot from them. Um, I don't know. So
You mentioned uncles that were racing. Who is that?
Blake and Bobby Breen. So they used to
Oh,
run,
okay.
yeah, back
Okay.
in the day.
Gotcha.
Used to do a lot of the Patriots and some ESS stuff. And yeah, my grandfather, he's got a lot of friends at the track. Every time he's up here, he tries to always catch a race, and he's always talking to people I didn't even know he knows. So
Awesome. Awesome. Now, you talked about going out, on the road and that was something that when you first came around, around the Finger Lakes area racing yourself, I didn't really know a lot about you and looked and talked to a few people and they said, "Yeah, this guy's not, for a fan sitting in the grandstands at Canandaigua who all of a sudden heard of, Dillon Paddock racing a 305 sprint car, they probably have no idea that, your involvement in racing goes, a pretty good ways back. But tell us about some of those travels that you have done, because you've done a ton of wrenching on sprint cars before you even sat in the seat to drive one yourself. And so you're not somebody that just picked up this sport and hopped in a race car and here I am. Like you definitely paid your dues and did a lot of work wrenching on these things before you started driving them.
yeah, absolutely. I say, the way I got my start in racing was a little bit different than probably most would. Most, grow up racing, and that's all they know. Me, I kind of grew up just watching it, and then finally I had a connection through my uncle that he went to school with out in Ohio. Um, he is actually from Australia, Scott Boguski. He gave me my first opportunity to go out on the road, and his first year on the ASCS tour, I connected with him, and it was just me and him. I was his only crew guy, and doing it for pennies on the dollar. But those are the sacrifices you have to make if you want to learn and get that start. And that's what I did. So I did that the first year with him, and then we ended up out in California, working out there for probably 2 to 3 years, and running the Country Builders team out there. Now that Austin McCarl drives, um, a lot of good times, a lot of good connections made, and wouldn't change it for anything. But I got what I wanted out of it, and now that I can come back home and use my knowledge and don't have to rely on anyone to build my cars or set it up. I kind of do all that myself now. So that was kind of my goal to get out of it, and made a lot of great friends along the way. Met a lot of great people.
I can't imagine the stories that have come out of some of those experiences and but also and I feel like in some dirt racing podcasts we've heard, the last year or so more and more stories of how much of a grind that kind of schedule is to be on a team that's chasing a traveling series. How much of a grind is that, being out on the road and, whether you're one or maybe you're one of two guys that are crewing on a car. That's you hear a lot about it now because it seems like teams are having more struggles trying to find guys that are willing to do that or willing to sacrifice themselves to go out and do that. But from your perspective, how much of a grind was that?
Yeah, absolutely. That is probably that first year was definitely there's a lot of moments where you're like, is this really what I want to do? But you stick it out, it pays off. There's a lot of long nights, a lot of, long hours. It's hot and sometimes you're living out of a toter, just you and another guy. And you have to kind of mentally prepare yourself for that as well. You have to, if you're with one person all the time, you have to live with that person. Pretty much do everything with that person. And thankfully, I was working with Scott, and it was just us two. We got along great, and a lot of great experiences. But a lot of drive hours. That was the last year ASCS. I think went from Pennsylvania all the way to California or Washington, whatever it was. They haven't done that, and since that year. So I got to see a lot, got to learn a lot. Definitely a grind. It wears you out, but all in all. Um, it was a great experience.
Do you have a favorite event or anything that you went to, a favorite race that what was it some of the bigger events or what was an event that really stuck out to you is man, that this thing is really a big deal because I know there's a lot of big races out in California that here in New York we might hear about them, we might hear results from them, but unless you've been out there, a lot of folks out this way don't really maybe understand the California racing scene as well. And any of those types of events that stick out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the easy answer to that is Knoxville Nationals. Nothing really compares to that. But when it comes to California, I'd say California is kind of like its own world when it comes to sprint car racing, and kind of the same with New York. Two completely different styles of racing. California's cowboy up, rough. Not rough all the time, but it's usually rough, fast. Just you got 60 cars out there trying to kill each other for 15th place, and out here, it's more slick, wide racing. More of a racing track. Slow down, use the brakes. Yeah, just two totally different styles, but a race out in California that really stands out is probably Gold Cup at Chico, Silver Dollar. Um, that is probably one of the coolest races, coolest events. And I think within the last year, after Larson, Sweet, and Copeland took it over, um, they've really grown that just in the last couple of years. So I'd like to get back out there and check that out. I'd even, I actually raced at Chico one night in a open 360 with Mark Moore. I think I had two starts in a 360. Actually, only one in New York. I ran Dundee and Outlaw one night. I made the feature out of the heat race, and then 12 laps in the feature, it rained out. So that was my first ever
Oh,
race. And then the next night, actually ran a 360 at Canandaigua. We ran hot laps, and it rained out after that. So
oh, geez.
my first two starts in a sprint car and a 360 didn't go as planned, but it was fun. And then actually exactly 1 year later in March, um, for some reason, Mark Moore, he's like, hey, you want to come out and, race the 360 at Chico for Silver Cup? And I'm like, are you sure you meant to ask me? I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing or, I mean, I know how to work on it and whatnot, but I'm like, you're asking me to race your car? Like, yeah, sure, let's go. I'm not going to turn that down. But thankfully he gave me that opportunity. Obviously the results weren't great, but I went out there and we had a great time. I think one of the coolest things was actually in the heat race. I think I started like sixth or eighth or something. I didn't qualify very well, but I actually drove right by Tim Kading in turn two after the start. And then I was like, my head was so full. And I was like, after a lap or two, I think I smoked the wall coming off the floor with the right rear and just let everyone drive back by me. And, after that, I was like, all right, let's chill out and just finish. So, some good moments and, a lot of good memories from out there. So,
Hey, no matter how it turned out, I'm sure there's a lot of guys here in New York that would love to say they swept around the outside of TK in California.
yeah, I don't think I ever told TK that story. He probably didn't even know who the heck was driving that car that night. But it's definitely in the back of my head. Once in a while, it's like, yeah, I passed that guy one time for a couple laps. So
He was probably just as surprised as you were, right?
Yeah, right. He's probably who the heck's that? So
Oh man. Yeah, that's wild. So some of these stories are ones I still didn't realize. I knew you did some traveling and stuff, and that's great, man. So I gotta I gotta believe that, obviously doing all that work for that amount of time. And two, with the race team that you were with, you said it was just, you and the driver essentially, right?
yeah, yeah. It was
So
yep.
so just being you and the driver, it wasn't like you had a area of specialty on the car. Like, you weren't just the tire guy or like with just you and the driver, you had to become good at everything.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons I'm glad I did it. Scott was a very good teacher to me, and he pretty much showed me the ropes, everything to do with sprint car racing, hands-on wise. Whether it's just working on the car, just car maintenance, motor maintenance, running the valves, anything to do with that. We pretty much did everything together. It wasn't just me doing one thing or him doing the other. We kind of just did it together and got it done. It's not like he was doing one thing and I was doing the other. We kind of just, that way we didn't wear each other out. We kind of just, played both roles and it worked out.
So when you come back to New York, you start building your own stuff, you start racing your own stuff. When was the first time that, either something happened or you put something together a certain way that you were like, yep, if I didn't have that experience with Scott, I might not have known this or I might have been doing this differently.
Yeah. I don't really know. I mean, I feel like we haven't really had too many crazy stories racing up here. I try to limit our mistakes for sure. Just, keep our shop work up to a T and make sure nothing really happens at the track. But there's stories out on the road when, I've made mistakes, like, qualifying for Knoxville Nationals and, we go out and change gears and I don't put the oil fill cap back on from the rear end. And next thing good thing it's only 2 laps, come back in, there's no oil in the rear end.
Oh,
Things like that. Obviously, we make sure that doesn't happen. That's why we have a maintenance list and fill that out and that way you initial it, you know who did what and whatnot. That's kind of things we have to do around here. Sometimes the beverages get flowing a little bit and after they get flowing a little bit, no more working on race cars. So
yeah. So you get rolling here with the 305 sprints. You've been doing some tour racing with CRSA. What kind of I imagine just growing up in this area and obviously having family and stuff here is probably really what brought you back to start racing here because you could race 305 sprints in many different areas, but was it just this being your home base is what brought you back here?
well, I think obviously growing up here, going to all the tracks, and it's like, man, I want to race one day, and obviously seeing all the races at these tracks, it would be a little bit more familiar with me. I guess you'd say. Um, I feel like the sole reason, moving back here, it takes a long time, or for me, anyways, the route I went to acquire things and build up a program, just even had to have the equipment to go race. And thankfully here, I get to work out of my grandfather's race shop, so it works out in my favor. I'm not having to rent a shop or anything like that. There's a ton of different
Absolutely.
roles, there's a ton of roles that play into this. Um, but I've got people that want to go help. Obviously, I have to take care of my guys. I can't really give them, pay for them to go racing every week. But I have a lot of friends that go and help out every week. It's not just one thing that brought me back. But really it's just the resources and the people that help out, and obviously my family's here too. So
Well, you come into this whole deal, the first year. Boy, there was nights that you showed a ton of speed and it's like, man, this guy's just got no luck to go with it. Like I felt like that first year there was probably three different nights that we could have been watching you stand in victory lane. Um, how much did that first year of some of those struggles and some of the just some of the crazy things that happened to you along the way that, those nights that it didn't work out and then it finally pays off on a huge show this past year, winning on our Fourth of July show. I know that it doesn't take the sting away from the bad luck of the year past, but just how rewarding was that win, getting the first one there July 4th weekend?
Yeah, well, that July 4th weekend, I was actually thinking about that earlier today. I was like, man, I remember just like waking up that down, man, today's gonna be a good day. And I was like, I posted a picture, I think it said like July 4th special or something like that. And we ended up going out there and winning. But yeah, that was super nice. I was pumped up. It was a big night. Obviously, it was CRSA show, and I was on Dirt Vision, Super Dirt Car Series was there. A lot of fans in the stands. It was good to do it on that stage that we were given, and that was a lot of fun. Good race. I think I started on the pole. Daryl, got around me in the first few laps. I was just trying to be conservative, and then towards the race went on, I think he started to fade a little bit, get a little tight, and then I was able to just to capitalize on that and get the win. And that was more of just a weight off my shoulders. And now I'm like, all right, and finally get the first one out of the way. After that first year, um, some of the wins, I still think about all those races that I should have won, could have won, whatever. Um, that's you live and learn, not to make those mistakes again. As don't be underweight, don't hit the Uke tire on the white flag lap when you're leading. Just things like that. There was even other races when we were leading and give it away halfway through the race on just because the inexperience leading a race on a restart or something like that. There was a handful of those as well. I felt like coming out in our first year though, like we were competitive. We had a lot of speed. Pretty much, most of the time we unloaded, and I think that says a lot about the work we do in the shop here and my guys, and they bust their backs for me, and that's all I want to do is win for them. I don't really go out looking to race for points. It's never been a thought in my mind. I don't even make plans or say, hey, I'm going to go race for points at Atlanta Legends, or I'm not going to go race for points at CRSA. I kind of just show up. I race what I can when I can, and I just want to be the show and I want to win races. So that's what we do.
Absolutely. Part of the story this year too, in getting to a third place finish in points was, I know at one point, you have a pretty substantial crash on the back straightaway, and then that kind of starts a deal with the Papa's Place team, which got you back in a car sooner, and then it ends up paying off for Timmy Lotes getting his first win at Canandaigua, and for quite a few weeks there, it was like, man, this is really turned into a one hands washing the other kind of deal here.
Right, absolutely. I can't thank Timmy and Rick and Holly at Papa's Place. They really, got me, they were able to keep me going for the rest of the year, really. After that little tumble there in the backstretch, I was like, all right, the way I race, I feel like people probably think I have 5, 6 cars sitting in my shop. That's not the reality of it. I got one car, one motor, and something happens, we thrash and we figure out how we're gonna make it there the next week. Um, but funny story with Timmy. Actually, the first time I ever sat behind the wheel of a sprint car, it was over at Paradise, and he was actually there testing his 305, and I had a 360 in. And I think on the first or second lap, I spun out, and Timmy ran straight in the back of me, and that's kind of funny how that all worked. And next thing you know, he's giving me a car, and now we're great friends, and everything's great there. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That was a really cool story of sportsmanship there. And like you said, it kept you going. I know it helped out, Timmy a bunch because, look, Timmy's got talent, man, and sometimes it just takes whether it's another set of eyes or hey, have you tried this or hey, throw this at the car and see what it does. Like that works for me. Let's see if it'll work for you.
Right.
And yeah, that was cool. And Timmy, another guy, that we grew up racing with the Breens, like
Yep.
And I'll tell you, it's like I'm so stoked for these drivers that get their first wins, but man, some of these drivers that have come up through the ranks that I know came from go-karts or came from micros or whatever it is, like man, that is that is why I love doing this stuff, why I love announcing is when you know those stories and you know what it's taken for people to get to that point to, achieve something that they probably never thought that they would ever have a opportunity to achieve. It's nuts, man. It's cool. It's really really good stuff. I was so happy for Timmy and that whole gang, they're they were a lot of fun growing up
Yeah, they
racing
grind it out for
concerts.
sure. But obviously he comes from the micro stuff. I think the big thing is getting away from, habits of the micro stuff. Obviously I've never raced a micro and just getting away from, what they would do in a micro to, now the big car. So I
Yeah.
think, helping them out and, getting away from some of those habits has played a huge role. And I'm happy to, help anyone out that I can. And I'm glad that all worked out for Timmy and, he got his first win and I'm sure there's more to come.
You've done, some races in a 360. Is there that same level? And I know, the car is the same, but the engine, the power is different. Is there anything that you found that you had to adjust running 360 versus 305?
Really, my time in the 360 would have been, my first three attempts at racing. I kind of just do what I thought I had to do. Not really ever having a feel for the car. I can't really say too much on that. I was just trying to get my feet wet and understand, what it's like to be behind the wheel. But I make adjustments based what I think. But now that I've got two full seasons behind my belt, going in the third year now, we've got a 360 in our stable now, so we're looking to do probably 10 to 15 shows in that. And I think doing that this year, I'll be able to answer that question a little bit better. I think there'll be a few things to change, but for the most part, if we can keep a well balanced car, there's no reason why we shouldn't have some good runs in that.
Yeah. No, that's great. So I had a couple of people that heard we were doing this interview tonight and sent me some questions, and that was kind of tied into one of the questions that they asked was, hey, you're talking to Dillon Paddock, like, they said this is a ways down, but they said ask him, where do you see yourself racing in 5 years? And maybe some of that is the answer. Like, is 360s what we look to achieve down the line here? Or is it more like you said earlier here? Is it more of a, hey, we're going to race what we can when we can, and that's just how we're going to approach it.
Well, I mean, really, it's kind of crazy times right now. 305 class is huge, and now it seems like we're getting a few big shows, $4,000 to win shows. The 360 thing is, really what I've always wanted to do around here. And I'm excited to do that. Whether, down the road we ever, follow the ESS tour or whatever, we'll see how that plays out. But doing this, not really getting racing until you're 24 years old when people have been doing it their whole life and they kind of turn it into a career or whatever. I don't really know where it's going to go. If I was a little bit younger, I'd say, yeah, I want to, race 410s, go race Pennsylvania full time, you know, that'd be awesome. But, I don't want to say it's a pipe dream, but, possibilities are always there. It just depends, if I can sell myself and, get those, get those potential, sponsors and do something like that. But I still got to have a realistic life and, do real life things. And,
Yeah.
um, there's a lot that goes into it, but, I just got to be able to make sure all my ducks in a row to do anything, uh, close to that.
So for the fans sitting in the grandstand at Canandaigua, they see you come out putting shows on the weekend. what's Dillon Paddock doing during the week? What's work life look like? What's work interests? What do you like to do outside of the race car? What are some of those things?
Uh, I mean, shoot, I work pretty much 50 hours a week. Usually I'm just in sales now. Selling vehicle service equipment and things like that for Trek. Actually, Brian Holland, he's my boss.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he's a successful sprint car racer. I like going in to bounce ideas off him, and I like when he tells me what he thinks. I like to see him race a little bit more. Um, but during the week, it's pretty much work and working in the shop. The work in the shop really never ends. But sometimes you find us down at the Stone Eight Tap House, hanging out, having some food. They're a great marketing partner with us, and we're happy to have a relationship that we do with them. So we support them. You know, um, Other than that, there's really very limited time during the week. I feel like you got to work and you got to run a couple errands, go to Home Depot. Next thing you know, you get back, get to the shop. It's 6:30, 7 o'clock. You work for an hour, and then it's like, holy cow, it's 8 o'clock already. I haven't even thought about dinner. So
Yeah.
really, just try to make the most of our weekends in the off season, and just try to be responsible as we can.
Awesome. Well, the next time you talk to Howland, ask him about the big photo frame he got at Woodhall his last full-time year.
All right.
That was something cool when I was announcing down there. They tried to make a big deal about that because Howland had good luck down there on the high banks. So those were fun years, but I didn't know that. So that's cool. That's another racing connection there. Other questions. Somebody, and they will remain nameless. Somebody said, "Hey, ask him about Bobby Perro. Is it a friendly rivalry? Is it a mean rivalry? What is it?"
Yeah, I think it's I would consider Bobby, Mike and Charlie, I consider them guys all, good friends, and we have a lot of fun together. I think there's definitely a rivalry, and rightfully so. I have a lot of fun. That's the one guy I want to beat every time I go to the track, and um, I feel like he'll do anything to beat me too. So that's a lot of fun. I think the way the format works at Land of Legends, um, I got to make it very important to beat him to the front every week. But there's been many times where I get to the front and then next thing you know, he just drives by me like I'm standing still. So he keeps me on my toes, makes me want to work harder and be better every week. But I mean, at the end of the races, we have a beer after the race, and between Mike, Charlie, and him, they point things out to me, things that I could even do better. So it's a friendly rivalry, I would say, and I enjoy them guys a lot, and they're a lot of fun to be around.
Awesome, man. Hey, I think there's probably more questions I could ask, but I think if I hold on to a few under the vest, that just means I'll have to have you back again. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate the time. Hope all the off-season work is going well. I think this gives a really good opportunity for our fans to learn a little bit more about your racing career, and I'm sure that there are people that when the feature gets ready to start for the sprint cars on a Saturday night, they've said, "Hey, I'm pulling for the 8 car. I think he's going to do it tonight." And they probably had no idea of your history in racing. So this has been a great opportunity to learn a little bit about yourself and things that we can talk racing racing and stats and all this good stuff all the time, but getting to kind of know the driver under the helmet a little more is really cool. So definitely appreciate the time. And you mentioned a couple of the marketing partners. I'd be remiss not to give you an opportunity to mention those folks because we know how important they are. So
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of great people to help me out, whether it's, my friends, family. Um, but for the most part, I mean, Norcott Contracting, Kiddos Karting, Sharp Electric, Stone Eight Tap House. It's just those are our main guys, and obviously Papa's Place. They've done a lot for me as well. So Any chance I can this year is I've been doing a lot of thinking in the off season, and this year I think I really want to do more fan engagement things, and do a little bit more on social media. So looking to grow in that aspect, and do more for the fans, and hopefully have a great 2025, and get a few more wins under our belt.
Awesome, man. Well, if there's anything from the track side that we can do to help out in those areas, you know how to get a hold of us for sure. Um, you mentioned kiddos karting. I got to ask about that. What is kiddos karting?
So Kittle's Karting is actually a shed hauling business. Um, Gerald, he's come along. I think he was with me for my first year. I didn't really know who he was. Carrier Customs, I can't forget them. They helped me out tremendously. And actually, Kiddos takes his shed hauling equipment to Michael down at Carrier Customs. And he's like, hey, know anyone in racing that I want to get involved with helping them out. And I'm good buddies with Michael and Miranda, and he's like, yeah, my friend races. And then we got in contact, and it's we've built a great relationship from there. Gerald he's a great guy, and he stays busy. He's just a one-man band, but he works harder than probably anyone I know. So,
Well, I'm glad I asked you because for as many times as I've said kiddos karting as a sponsor on your race car, my first thought was, well, it's got to be racing. It's got to be go-karting or something. So
right.
I'm glad I asked, man. See, I'm learning a bunch here tonight, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
he's great. He's like, yeah, dude, don't even put my name on the car. But when people help me out, I want to make sure they're recognized. So
Yeah, man. Awesome. Well, hey, again, appreciate the time. We'll look forward to seeing you this season. And yeah, you mentioned a lot of these big shows, man. Good luck at a lot of these big shows. The 305 sprints, from a touring side and getting opportunities at some of these big money shows, man. I look 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And boy, there was a lot of uncertainty with this division, and to see the turnaround is just phenomenal. So, and you are, yes, you're one driver out of that group, but man, from a putting on a show perspective for the fans, and when you've gone out to tour shows, man, you definitely been a big part of that. So, best of luck this year, and man, it ain't gonna be long. We're gonna be back at the racetrack anyway. So,
yeah, super excited. Thanks for having me, and you know, next time you want to do it, say no.
all right, man. No, that sounds great. And you know what? I'll definitely see you at the track. And if nothing else, we can always meet in the lobby at Vernon Downs for tacos after the banquet. So,
Yeah, I don't know about tacos. I think I'm gonna go to bed before taco time next year. So
sounds good, man. Tell uh,
thank you.
tell tell your crew I said hello.
You got it. Thank you very much.
All right, there's Dillon Paddock here on Where Legends Are Made, the official podcast of Land of Legends Raceway. Hope you learned something new about one of our drivers in the pit area, and you can see him, at the Land of Legends, and it sounds like you're going to see him at some other local tracks as well. If you want to catch him in one of these 360 starts, man, head out and check that out. But that'll do it here for episode number 2. We've got a lot of good content coming your way, so stay tuned. We'll be releasing these on Wednesdays, and there will be some opportunities for some bonus coverage and some additional episodes as well. But one to look forward to that's coming up soon, we're going to sit down with the Ridley boys. We're going to be talking to Kyle, and we're going to be talking to the mayor, Parker Ridley, here soon. So you've got that to look forward to. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Land of Legends Raceway fans, tune in each and every week of the racing season to Where Legends Are Made, a podcast dedicated to covering the drama, excitement, and hear from the drivers from your favorite dirt track. Stephen Ovens and Brad Ovens walk you through the week that was Where Legends Are Made. Subscribe on Apple or Google Podcasts.